everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. I'm your host, Olivia Atkin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with actress Sofie Kane. Sofie Kane is a Canadian actress known for her versatility and emotional range across both independent and mainstream projects. Sofie has appeared in a variety of productions, including Billy the Kid, So Help Me Todd, and Night Terror, where she's delivered performances that reflect not just skill, but real presence. Most recently, she also appeared in an emotionally charged episode of Watson, bringing nuance and depth to a character caught in a moment of transformation. Her upcoming role in the thriller Night of the Reaper continues to showcase her expanding range and her ability to move fluidly between genres. Whether you're stepping into suspense, drama, or historical storytelling, Sofie brings an intentionality to her work that signals she's building a career of longevity and meaning. Hello, Sofie. It's fantastic having you on the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. That's so kind.
To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Sofie Kane?
Yeah, absolutely. Success to me, it really looks like forming and practicing, it sounds cheesy, but love and gratitude. I think now more than ever, I'm experiencing in my life, I'm losing someone while they're here with dementia. And it's my grandmother, who is the strongest woman and has achieved so much throughout her life. And she always had this anecdote of everything's done with a little bit of love. If it was the best soup, it's got love in it. If it's, the best song, it's got love in it. And so I think making that community around me that builds it so that every time that I'm off on a job, I can be very present in it and also come back to my home and really appreciate everything around me.
Yeah. I love that. And thank you for sharing that moment and insight into where your life is today as well. And it made me think of my grandmother. All four of my grandparents have passed away, and my last grandparent to live was my grandmother, who I was super close with from a very young age. And I remember I ended up going to college in the state she lived. So I would make it a point to leave campus and go with her. And she got to see that journey. And then I went back to school, and she didn't get to get my MBA, and she wasn't a part of that. But I remember everyone being like, she would be so happy. She'd be so proud. You continued this and went back to get your master's, and you got it here in her presence. But also every time I've done something, whether it was growing up, picking a college, picking a path, she'd be like, are you going to regret it? Or are you going to love it? And there were times, your parents want the best for you, but they also want you to maybe make what they deem a very good situation. And I remember every time I would go to my grandparents' house, because they lived in a different state, and I'd be talking to her, and she'd be like, okay, are you going to love it or are you going to regret it? Right. And that was the thing. And it for me, everything I do, I now go, am I going to love it or am I going to end up regretting this?
Really?
And it's one of those things that continue that presence, that impact, and what has shaped you shows up everywhere, just like you said, and really ends up defining part of and what success means and looks like for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding that fulfillment in every little crack of your life, I think, is so important, and it's just going to seep through everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that I had mentioned is you've stepped into some intense, emotionally layered characters in many different aspects, even when it's a single episode, like in Watson, which I've watched that episode. And then I was like, the whole time, I'm like, it is so interesting, this character, because that specific character you have played on Watson. And as I was prepping for this interview today, I was thinking about that character. Is you got one episode. Obviously, when you watch the show Watson, it's about the main characters, but it's about the people they serve as well in those singular episodes. Mm-hmm. And you, a lot of that episode, you were inside this computer screen. You were building a character that the other characters were talking about, that they were resonating, they were trying to solve this puzzle. But for so long, you built an emotionally charged character from being on a screen, but within that screen, you were within another screen. How do you build a character's inner world when you only have a limited window to tell that story and really make it come across on the screen?
Yeah. It is a very interesting world and job when you come onto a set and, the leads have been there, they all know each other, and then you're on and it's your episode. So you're there a lot, but you don't get too fleshed out. Like you're saying, it's kind of them figuring out what was going on, especially in that one. It's more of a procedural. But for me, I really enjoy journaling as the character. I really enjoy kind of getting into that mind space so that I've done that work, I've done that, and I can sit with it. So regardless of if there's more exposition on my character, I myself know the inner world. I really like going back to family. Maybe that's just how I am as myself. So like what the family life would have been like, any childhood, anything like that, up until what the most recent events could have been in terms of trauma. And if something's a little bit heavier like this, or yeah. And then the other one is I come from, my mom's a musician. And so music is a really big part of my life. And it's kind of what led me into acting. And I like making a playlist or thinking of their favorite artists. And for this one, I made a playlist and it worked for the character. I kind of just moved and danced in my trailer to get into her body. And yeah, just to also continue to have fun with it as well and not put so much pressure on that one thing, because like you said, it is just the one episode. So yeah.
You had mentioned journaling and you journal about the character. Do you also make journaling an everyday practice for you, even when you're not in character?
Every time I do it, I love it. I wish I did it more. I do. What I do love, though, is I do it every single time I travel. So anytime I go out of my everyday life, I have like travel books, like from when I went to Europe, from when I went to Peru, from when I went to like all of these different places, because those for me, I mean, I never want to forget, but also it's such a time capsule of such an incredible moment in life that we ourselves can think of memories, but also to have that paper proof as to what my mindset was like at the time. I do it for that.
Well, I'll tell you, that reminds me of my youngest sister. Her name's Lauren. And from a very young age, she had to have a journal with her when we traveled. And it, like, to the point where this girl, like, could not go to bed. We might be, overseas, and we get there the first day and we're all exhausted. And she's like, I can't go to bed yet. I have to journal about the day. And she'd like go into detail. This girl could write like 4 pages sometimes. She's gotten better over the years, but every time she travels, she journals, she keeps things. Like I keep certain things from my travels, but I know myself, I will like start it. And then like so much is happening that like that day I'll forget to do it. And then like I'll get frustrated that I forgot to do it. So I'm like, I create my own way of like journaling and remembering it. But yeah, she has a book from everywhere. She recently did 6 months as part of her work in Australia. And so, yeah, she had a specific journal for just like all the moments and experiences and nuances in it. And so I think journaling, she does it in that capacity. I do it here and there. But one thing I've started to do in my everyday life is take a few minutes to journal, what my goals are, where I am today, like sit in gratitude, like you'd mentioned earlier, and start the day out with self-love, gratitude, and really shaping the positive mindset so that when you show up throughout the day, now there's positivity instead of waking up and being like, oh, slept in, and like being frustrated. And what I've learned too in that process is it can very quickly, without you realizing it, first day, few days on, change your mindset of how you show up. Another thing I do is like I call them brain dumps, where I time myself for 3 minutes and I just write down everything I'm thinking of. And yeah, and like it could be the randomest thing. And that's one of the things I start off my morning with, where I'll wake up, I'll do my like little journaling for 10 minutes, and then I'll do a 3-minute brain dump. And sometimes, if it's a weekend or something, I might flip the order or not do it. But what I've found is that brain dump, when you write everything you're possibly thinking of down on paper, the rest of your mind, the rest of the day is so clear. My boyfriend jokes, since I started doing it, he's like, I, work from home and seeing everyone virtually. When he comes home, I'm like, yo, okay, so, and blah, 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 and this and that, and I just randomly thought of this. And now he comes home, and there's times I'm like, I don't know if I have anything to tell you. Like, those random thoughts aren't popping up anymore. So journaling in different capacities can really be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I'm going to take a page out of your book and do a brain dump. I love it.
It can really help. I know some people, it's really helped me fully clear out my mind for the day, but I know some people who I've talked to who have started doing it, whereas they start to feel later in the day, like all these thoughts come in, they'll pause and for 3 minutes just write things down, and that will get them back on focus. And so, yeah, I recommend it. It's awesome. And that being said, a lot of actors talk about being seen, not just in casting, but in who they are as an artist. Have you had a moment yet where you felt truly seen in your work, and how did that feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it is an interesting balance being an actor, because you're always stepping into other people's lives in a way. I think the moments for me for being seen would have been off camera. The ones that come to mind, Billy the Kid was the first thing that I booked. I was still in college, and I got flown to Calgary, and I was really nervous, but I'm there for 2.5 weeks. And it was kind of the first time that I left home as like by myself, doing my own thing, standing my ground. Not that I was scared of it, but I think I didn't realize I have a very close family and I love everything about it. But I think I always, because I'm a person that is constantly checking in with other people, that I forget about myself. And so it was the first time I remember showing up as myself. And those boys on that show were so kind. Even Daniel and Alex, who I didn't even have scenes with, we would just go for dinner and have these incredibly deep talks. And we were able to see each other reflected in mirror, even though we just met each other. And I was like, oh, I am cool. I've got this. Like, it was weirdly the first time that happened. So I'd say that. And then more recently, I think in class, just being able to show up, I just like to keep it up in different classes here and there. And this place called Railtown, they're amazing. And you show up as you are, and that's A-okay. And I think it's really refreshing, especially coming from a theater school background where you're looking to get your A's and make sure you don't get kicked out, that you can that is what the job is showing up with everything that you are, because you are that person in a way. And so being as present as possible and for it to be reflected back to you on who you are is really incredible. And you don't always get it, especially in this industry.
Well, and that's, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, yes, we have to follow up on this. And that was going to be part of my follow-up question is, how has showing up in that manner continuing to hone your skill, but in an environment of, okay, just show up who you are, affect how you show up for auditions or roles, and maybe take that feedback and that experience, because like you just said, that especially with your background of going to a school where it's like, okay, hit your marks, do this, do that, and that's what will move the needle. And in the industry you're in, where it's like, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to show up so many more times than not, has that affected and changed how you show up in different environments?
I think absolutely. I think it's so funny that I mean, personally, and I've spoken to other people about it, a lot of the time, even not in this industry, you're feeling a certain way and you're like, oh, I really don't want to show up this way. And there have definitely been certain tapes, especially after COVID, a lot of it has been virtual and a lot of it is self-tapes. And so you're just standing in your own house and you've just, you haven't eaten all day and you're like, I've got to put this down on tape, or you've had the busiest day. But it's funny that the minute I've given it up, I've fought my tiredness, I've fought all of that. And then I've almost not done auditions. And those are the ones that I end up getting and that I end up having the most incredible time with. When I did, I think it was Watson and Billy the Kid, they were both ones that I was like, I can't do it. I'm not in the headspace. I'm not going to do it. And I had the best people around me that were like, just try, just put it down, put it into the world. And I showed up with all of it. And there you go. So.
Well, it also just shows that even in moments of struggle or self-doubt, you push through and it can be the most rewarding experience, and things that could happen that you wouldn't even expect. And so for you, has it, as you mentioned, like COVID shifted a lot, has that also shifted how you approach auditions because you're not in front of people, or has it approached how you show up throughout the process at all?
Yeah, I think that I crave being in the room a lot more. So any chance that I get, I think even creating my own spaces or places where people can come and we do a table read in our life so that we can act with another person that's in the scene with us, has kind of become more of a priority or a goal of mine. I think that in terms of self-tapes, there's a lot of pros and cons to it because it does give yourself a little bit more flexibility. But I think, my partner is also an actor, and I think we've tried to create a little bit more of a ritual because we don't want it to become a chore. It's really easy to become a chore when you're like, oh, I just made dinner, but I still need to do this audition. And, okay, here we go. So I think that it's really great practice in changing that mindset and dedicating certain time and presence and gratitude, like we're saying, that the audition's coming in, and so let's try our best and send it off and see where it goes. I think because we're not in the room and I can't be like, hi, I'm Sofie. I think sometimes sending in 2 takes if they allow it and trying those out and seeing if that sticks has helped as well.
I love how you brought up there as well, making something more of a ritual than a chore. What are some ways, not just in acting, have you taken something that has become feeling like a chore that you have to do it when you don't want to, and making it more fun and something to look forward to?
Oh, I think, I think it's in the mundane and in certain errands that you have to run and like going out, I've really tried to make it that time and make it like my music time. So I'm like, this time I can like listen to this album that I haven't been able to get to and run all these errands or clean the house or do the laundry. I think that changing it to a me time a lot of the time, because I think, like I mentioned, I feel as though I do really love to help other people. And so when those things pile up of errands and chores and things like that, I'm like, oh, now there's all this stuff. But I try to change it so that it's actually a me time and it's like a my day. So I try and, yeah, make it fun for myself and have a moment with myself if I can, and not run away from that, even though it's so easy to in the social media world and all of that.
Yeah. And it's also about, as you just said, being present and having that time, because having that time for yourself and look at it instead of just the to-dos to I get to do can be so powerful. And like, again, you could be cleaning and get to listen to the music that while you're at work you don't get to listen to, or these different aspects of it. And that's one thing, as well as like, I recently had a conversation, and I also had like read this book about who, not how. So at some point when you're so busy, and it's looking at, okay, we all have the same amount of hours in the day. We can all do so much. At what point are there things that, instead of asking, how do I do that, and going through the learning curve or going through those tasks that can take up so much time, can you ask who can do that and who can do it better? And so I recently, actually literally yesterday, had a conversation where I am putting together this PDF on when a client signs with me, like, here's what to expect, here's the next steps, so they immediately get it. And typically every person I sign, they always and will always still get a call with me before they sign, and then typically I do one after. And this is supposed to be the middle ground. And I haven't done it in the 4 years I've been in business, but I'm like, okay, if more people are asking for this, I should create it. And I started going down the path of like people asking for it. And I'm like, okay, I could create something, a one pager, a few pages, and I will put it on my to-do list. And what I started to notice is like, be like, oh, this week I could totally get to this. I know how I work. I could totally get to this. And I'd like put it on the list on Monday, and I get done Monday and like, okay, I worked a really hard week or a day. I'll have time tomorrow. Push this till tomorrow. And then a few days go by and the week goes by, and I'm like, this could go to next week. I don't have to sit on the computer for X more hours. I'll do it. And finally, yesterday, I had a conversation where I texted a good friend of mine, and I was just like, I know you've been, encouraging me to get this done. I'm just noticing I'm not. And I think I need a who instead of like my how right now, because it's already taken up mental load. It's already taken up me the different times I've tried to touch it, and then I stare at the screen for a little bit, and then I'm like, oh, I could be doing something else. And I get frustrated, and then that sits with me, and that energy sits. And I was like, I think it's time to just be like, no, okay, this is something I need to offload so that I can be more present in the other things. And she's like, okay, I got the person. My VA did mine. She'll take about 2 hours. She'll have it done. And I was like, why didn't this who, not how, like come up a month ago? Because this could have been done, and this and that. But it's in those moments, right? There's certain things where you like, now I'll have more time to do other things personally that I want to do instead of sitting there doing the task. So I think sometimes it's a mix of like identifying, okay, what can you do? How can you leverage that time to not only get it done, but have self-care for yourself? And also, when are those times where it's like, okay, we need to check in. We need to say, is there a reason you haven't been doing it? And it is like bringing someone else to help you, whether that is a friend, when it's paying someone, worth that little bit to like mentally get you clear for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Asking for help it's a lesson that I think is so integral to learn in life. Yeah.
So I also want to bring up the fact that, as we've talked about throughout this episode so far, you've worked on a range of projects from period dramas, thrillers, episodic TV. What's one genre or character type you haven't played yet that you're secretly obsessed with exploring?
Ooh. I mean, my comfort movie has been Mamma Mia since it came out. And so something like that could just be someone's comfort movie. I think also it's got music. It's ABBA. Come on. I'm not saying if it's ABBA, great. I'll take that too. But I think that something like that or in the rom-com area, my comfort movies, I have yet to do that. So I think something like that, as well as obviously, I think what a lot of women want right now is just to be the empowered woman that kind of isn't just there to add to someone else's storyline. But yeah, through the lens of something maybe under the indie umbrella that's a little bit more simple, laid back, and conversational. And I'm always looking for that. But yeah, something like Mamma Mia would be really, really awesome.
I could see you in something like Mamma Mia. I'm like, the presents you bring. I'm like, that'd be fun.
Thank you. Love it.
We're putting it out into the universe today.
Yeah, it's done.
It's happening. A year from now, you're going to be telling me like, hey, listen, like I'm 2 months in, 3 months in, this is what's happening. I'm like, yes,
I'll say thank you, Olivia.
What I also wanted to talk about is social media, right? We have this avenue of watching and exploring and pulling back the curtain, and through characters or different personas we present ourselves on TV. Now we also have social media. And social media can feel like both a creative outlet and also a career megaphone. Let's be real, right? I have a podcast. It is a career megaphone. I'm not going to sit here and like try to downplay that, right? I literally have a microphone right here. How do you balance staying visible while protecting the parts of your artistry that need quiet to grow?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's interesting that is part of the career now. That's something that one needs to learn how to balance or figure out. I'd say I don't have all of the social medias. I have most. But for me, it does still feel like something that I try to make more creative or things that I personally love. I think I love it as a place or a platform to also support all of my very, very talented friends and make light to that. And we have to, be what my mom likes to call like shameless self-promoters, is just like, throw it out there and let people know what's happening. But I wouldn't say I do it too much. I think kind of like we're talking about, if I do, it's normally in regards to the process or my gratitude for being on it or certain people. And I try to come at it from that lens rather than just the constant, hey, this is what's going on. And then I'll throw a tree in there and be like, go in nature. That's all,
And as you said, which I wasn't even necessarily thinking of, it's become such a norm as you get a role and you need to promote it on social media. It's like instead of just acting, it's acting, and now you need to be leveraging your social media presence and doing all these other things. And when you said that, even made me think of like some of the TV shows you have, and The Rookie, for example, and you continuously see their cast now doing like whatever the TikTok trend is, and they're doing it, and it's fun, and you get to see them in a different light, but it's also they're promoting their characters, while not fully saying like, okay, take the makeup off, take this character off, this is who I am. So for you, you specifically have a beautiful and intentional social media presence. Like I was looking through your stuff, and it's like when you look at your posts, whether it's the pictures or the captions, it's like, I'm here. This is the moment, which I think goes back a little bit to the journaling of your travels that we talked about earlier. For you, when you're curating isn't necessarily the right word, but when you're creating a post, do you think of it as an extension of who you are, an extension of this is a fun creative outlet for me? Do you feel sometimes it is a mix of what your role is in today's society deemed as acting and what you need to do to move the needle?
I think it is a little bit of both. I think I almost view it, I guess my brain just goes to Instagram because that's mostly what people are using. But I think that I almost like to use it as a journal or a scrapbook or memory banks. I think in terms of certain posts, I like things to be it's nice that it's all in one place and I can look back and there's certain moments in time, like you were saying. But I think it is forever changing. That's where I'm at in this career. It might get to, or at my career at this point, it might get to a point where I do have to kind of reframe or maybe not share so much because I do really value my private life and my people in there. And I like to share that to a certain extent because I like to show up as who I am. And I think that is reflected in my social media presence. But at the same time, I think, yeah, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And one thing I was thinking about when you were also saying the scrapbook, maybe like that's how, so as I've built my business, right, I started with the podcast and then created my consulting. And it was always about, okay, this is the platform. And I was so very early on, well, if you have a podcast, you need to have a presence on social media. And I'm like, okay, and we went through the process and I understood the framework on why, right? Why those individuals were thinking that. And then, but I was very much of like, it's going to be very organic. So it's going to be a post once a week. Like, I'm not out here like doing 20 posts a day about, hey, go check this out. But one of my boundaries, if you would say, or privacy markers was not knowing how it would explode, and very quickly it did. So I was happy, right? 30 days, I was in 8 countries. I was like, okay, this is taking off really quickly. But I created Achieving Success, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And originally the premise is, as a business owner, that is branding, that's identity, right? You're creating something. And then there was also a level of it as I looked at it as LinkedIn is always professional, right? So whether it's your personal page or a professional page, you're talking about professional, like what you do in career. So that one didn't bother me as much. But the personal Instagram and Facebook to me was like, that's my privacy moments. Those are like the moments I share with my friends. I want them to be able to see. And those are snippets into my personal life that not everyone should have access to. Now, in all reality, my accounts are public. So, like, yeah, anyone could, like, if they wanted to, follow it. But, and like, as the business grew, in even this past year, I finally got to a point where I was like, okay, the personal Facebook account, I'll also post business stuff, but it has to be a very good blend. But my one rule, and I have friends who make fun of me, is I'm like, I have my business Instagram and I have my personal Instagram. Those two won't overlap. Now, granted, when I was a TEDx speaker, of course I posted that on my personal Instagram. I was like I want to celebrate this. There are those life moments, right? Getting to be the only podcast in all 7 continents. I was like, I'm putting this, I'm celebrating this. But when you go on to my personal Instagram and even really Facebook, you really see like all those in-between moments. When we moved from Florida to Alaska for where we were stationed next, we road tripped it. And so we were in 14 different states, and each state I would like the pictures we took and experiences we had, I'd like create like a little video of pictures from it. And even that, I'd spend like hours on the drive doing it like the next day when we're leaving. And my boyfriend's like, why are you spending so much time on that? And I'm like, because this is it, to your point, like that journaling, being able to look back. And we still look back. And instead of going through the hundreds of photos, I'll just go to my Instagram and be like, look at this. Here's 2 minutes of like all these really cool memories we made.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And talking a little bit more on the online presence, do you ever feel a difference between how you're perceived online and who you are in your process, in the waiting, in the auditions, in acting, and how you show up as an actor, but also how you show up in those quiet moments that no one sees?
Yeah, I think that there absolutely is a difference, but I think it's also in day to day as well, like on a first impression. I think a lot of my life have shown up, and certain people have thought certain things about me before they even know me. And then they start talking to me and they're like, oh, it's totally different. So I think it's with anything in life. I think in terms of the social media presence, like we were talking about, I think there are like secret rules. I don't know the rules in like terms of my career acting. I don't really care to know. I think if it gets to a certain project and I need to do certain things, then that's great. But I do try, while keeping myself and, like you said, the boundaries private, still show up as authentically as I can with those. But absolutely, people don't see like the nerves that happen before you're like on set, and or before a self tape, or the dinner that I've had beforehand and that my breath smelled like garlic the whole time that I was doing the audition that's supposed to be this really, I think that there's beauty in that, and I like keeping that to myself, or to the close people around me. But yeah.
And how, I brought up boundaries, then you just touched upon them. How do you communicate those boundaries, or, kind of set them where you're, for example, you're super excited about Billy the Kid and getting that. And you might tell close friends and family, but it's like setting the boundaries too on like what they can say, or this or that. How in general do you analyze when to put a boundary up and how to communicate that boundary?
Oh, I think I'm still learning. I think that right now, I think it's leading by example in a certain way. I think as much as I talk about it, it's kind of shows the example as to how much I want other people to talk about it. I think, like you were talking about with your boyfriend, how you're like, we'll just say everything. I've got my boyfriend and my close family that I will do that too, but I really don't do that in my everyday life. I call myself a little bit of an observer. I like to I'm happy to talk to people when I'm there, but I definitely enjoy the one-on-one conversations more than just walking into a room and being the first person to talk to everyone. I think that that's a skill that I don't have. um, so I think that just trying to lead my life and constantly checking in with where I'm at. And I think, like you said, with your TEDx thing, also trying to check in and be like, okay, no, this one you can celebrate a little bit more. This one you can, broadcast. And it's always, I find like the way in which you do it and the way in which it's said, I think we should take pride in certain things. And I'm learning to do that and know that it's not a boast thing. But yeah, I mean, this is achieving success. And I think that everyone does it in their own way, and we should be proud of it.
And it's also one thing, even when you just mentioned the walking into a room, I remember when, working in different industries, professional sports, and in these areas, when you walk into the room, you have to be able to communicate and like talk to anyone who's in the space and jump into conversation. And is very interesting. And then working from home during COVID, I remember when my boyfriend and I met, it was right after I did my TED Talk and that released, and I was flying back from Jersey to Florida all the time and doing this and that. And so, like, we spent a lot of one-on-one time together, or I'd be working from home and then we'd spend one-on-one time together. And yeah, we did some things with groups of people, but when we did, it was his group, right? His group of friends he already had, or his family who'd come in, or my family. So it was like there's either a comfort there, or you're also getting to know people. So when we relocated to the next place he was stationed, which was here in Juneau, Alaska, I remember saying to him, I'm like, I was such an extrovert for so long, and now I feel like there's a level of being an introvert. And I said that without realizing that, like you, there's a level of like when I walk into a room and I know everyone, I'm like, yeah, let's jump into conversation, right? And we'll get like amped and loud, and like I could walk in and immediately start. What I've realized is when I don't realize the people, I take a step back and I like to do what you mentioned is observing. I want to see how people are moving, how they're talking, what they're saying. And then once I like get a picture of that and their demeanor, then I approach a certain way. And then I build relationships kind of off, not just the first impressions, but seeing what their comfort level is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like you said, the observer, I'm not like standing in the corner and spying. It's more like I think I just take in energies differently, and I like having those meaningful one-on-one conversations, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah. So thank you, Sofie, for all of your insight today. I feel like, was such a fun conversation and so impactful in all the different things we got to talk about.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so fun, and it was so lovely to get to know you and meet you. And thank you so much for all your questions.
Of course. And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation are just try it. Sofie mentioned early on and through today's multiple different points of conversation is you just got to lean in and try it, because you don't know what will happen if you don't, right? With her audition, those moments where she was feeling, I don't know if I should do this, I'm tired or this or that. And she got just try it. And then some of the best opportunities and moments of reflection and experiences came from just being like, okay, I'm going to try it. Secondly, create a ritual that instead of creating a moment of feeling like something is a chore. I love how Sofie brought this up, because so many times in our life, we're going through mundane tasks or tasks we just don't look forward to it. And very quickly they become chores in our life, whether that is cleaning or running errands to work tasks. There are work tasks where I'm like, oh God, I remember 4 years ago, this took so long. And it took a lot of unprogramming on my end too, to be like, oh, now this is fun because it only takes me 15 minutes instead of like an hour and a half to do. But creating that ritual of a way to look forward to it, the reward that could come after it, can reprogram what you're looking at as a chore. That self time that Sofie talked about in when she does those things, it's also a time for herself to spend with herself, as well as ask for help. When you need help, it is very important to raise your hand and ask for it and be the person either giving the help or receiving the help. And lastly, lead by example, whether that is with your boundaries, which Sofie and I had talked about, or in general. How do you want others to show up for you? Show up for them in that way. How do you want to communicate? What is your presence you want to have, whether it's on set like Sofie does, when it's in an audition, whether it is with family, and what do you want that to look like, and lead by that. And that's also the challenge I'm going to give everyone today is how can you lead today? Whether it is in a boundary, whether it is in activities you're doing, the way you show up for other people, how can you start leading in those environments today? This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, actress Sofie Kane. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.